Here we are today on our YouTube channel with the Watchmen's Report. And I got to tell you, Jeannie, I'm excited today. We have an exclusive today. This show will bring you, for the very first time ever, I believe, on a video broadcast anywhere in the country, I think even in the world, Mr. and Mrs. Josh Tolley. And we're just excited to have them there. We were grateful. Recently, we were able to go to their wedding back in the St. Louis area, and it was beautiful. Wasn't it amazing?
Yeah, guys, it was so incredible. It was absolutely a beautiful, beautiful ceremony and reception, and very unique, right? Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about your wedding?
Well,
and tell everybody else what was unique about it.
First, thank you so much for having us. It is just an honor to be with you. And you're right, this is the first public appearance that we've made together. So right here on your show. We didn't even do this on my show, so you got the scoop. But having you at the wedding was certainly a joy. And we had what would be considered a traditional biblical wedding. But it was beautiful having you there.
Yeah, so, it was really.
The way we put the wedding together, or the way we were helped with it, came about a little bit differently than a typical Christian wedding. I think one of the biggest differences was that the bride, myself, I came down the aisle first with my dad. The bridesmaids, of course, preceded me. But then the groom came down afterwards, because the whole concept is that we are here on the earth waiting for our bridegroom to come down for us. And so I think that was probably one of the biggest differences that caught people a little off guard, because they were expecting the bride to come down last, as in most traditional weddings. But this time Josh got to make the grand appearance, and everybody clapped and screamed, and it was really joyful. It was a huge celebration.
And we did something really unique, too, where we had the pastor who married us kind of teach on what a marriage is supposed to be, and why a marriage between a man and a woman is almost a rehearsal for the marriage between Jesus and his people. So once he taught that for about 25, 30 minutes, people really got into this story on how you wait for the groom to appear. And at the sound of a trump is when it's going to happen. And that's what we had. We had traditional shofars and trumpets, and it blasted, and then the groom appeared. And it was moving. We had a lot of comments afterwards about how it actually kind of brought
it was so beautiful. You know what I really loved about your wedding was, I think it was called your ketubah. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So we have this ketubah. A ketubah is a legal contract. So in, let's just say, Israel, or in a traditional Hebrew or Jewish wedding, the ketubah is actually the legal contract, to validate that these two people are married. And a dear friend of ours actually created this ketubah by hand. She came up with the design and everything, so it was all handmade. And she did a fabulous job on this ketubah. And so part of the ceremony is the signing of the ketubah. So both Josh and I signed the ketubah with vows that we have already agreed to and actually wrote ourselves. And we had our witnesses sign with us.
So what a ketubah is, if we compare it to the Bible, is the ketubah is actually like the Bible. The Bible is God's marriage contract with us. And like any marriage contract, it outlines the responsibility of both the groom and the bride. And then both parties are adherent to that covenant, which is why God establishes covenants and why he loves marriage so much. So by having a ketubah between us, it's that covenant and a reflection of the ketubah that we find in the Bible.
Right. Yeah. It was so, folks, it was such a beautiful work of art. It was this beautiful, large poster, and the promises and expectations that they had for each other were beautifully calligraphied or written on there. And don't you think that there'd be a lot less divorce if everybody did a ketubah before they got married and signed it?
Yeah.
Well, what's really interesting about the biblical way of marriage is that when the bride and groom get engaged, In Hebrew, it would be called betrothed, just like Joseph and Mary were betrothed to one another. That is actually, in lots of circles, when they sign the ketubah.
Yeah.
And so that's when officially they are married legally before the courts. They're not sleeping together, they're not living together, but they are legally married.
It's not consummated.
And so there's no consummation yet. And that's when the groom would go off to prepare a place for the bride. And during that time frame is when they would really just solidify, their relationship, where the bride would be waiting for the groom, waiting for him to get the place ready. And then he would come back and bring her home, so to speak. And so in our Western culture, we don't have that exact same setup as they used to, but we were trying to reflect that, because it wasn't until after Josh and I were betrothed or engaged back this past October that Josh was able to find an apartment, a place for us to live, and he started preparing that place. And then by the time we got married, he brought me home to the place that he had prepared.
And again, it's a direct correlation with what we see in the Bible. And this is why so many Christians are getting back to biblical meanings of things, because that's what it means when it says that he will come like a thief in the night. It's not some sort of, there's a boogeyman or a burglar. No, that was a lover's expectation that you are going to come as a thief in the night. And the same thing with nobody knows the day or the hour. It was a reflection of that the father of the groom would tell the groom when it's time to go get your bride. And like we see parallels of this over and over in the Bible, but when we don't understand the Bible in context, we have a tendency to read these things and then somehow come up with new definitions on what they might be referring to. So that's really part of the beauty behind a traditional wedding.
And I'll tell you what, one of the things that really touched me, and I, that I thought was kind of like, they do that, but before your wedding even started, about a half hour before or 45 minutes before, the rabbi took the time to walk all of us that were not of the Jewish faith through what each thing meant. And that was, to me, one of the neatest parts of the wedding. I mean, I truly never understood why you wrapped the glass up in a towel and smashed it on the floor. And he explained all that to us. And it was, man, I tell you, it was just fantastic.
And again, that's a direct reflection of what we see Jesus do when he says, drink of this cup and I will not drink of it again until the marriage supper in heaven. That's what he's referring to. And there's so many times that we miss all this meaning because we take what the Bible actually says and put in our own definitions and customs.
We have a watchdog.
Yeah, here the watchdog is over here right now.
Every time we go on air,
she wants to come in on the show. I think.
Yeah, she just knows. I don't know, what it is, but she for hours. And then when we start getting on air, she just wants to dance around the room but that's live YouTube, folks.
Yeah. So Josh, as I understand it, you have a new book coming out. I thought today on Facebook that you're in the editorial phase of it right now, which is, I'm sure, just grueling. But tell us, just if you can, in a few minutes, briefly about what that's going to be all about for people.
Well, what it is the title of the book is Why They Don't Believe. And I wanted to write a book because I've spent the past 20 plus years studying people in business and politics, relationships and faith, understanding how they believe, how they think, how we actually process thought. And I noticed that there are some common traits with people who say they don't believe in God. They might say they don't believe because science. They might say they don't believe because there's edits and contradictions in the Bible, or there's too many gods, or there's no evidence, or whatever they might say. But the reality is that those are never really the reasons. So in the first part of the book, I kind of go through all of those and prove how none of them hold any water. You would have to be logically empty to think that any of those hold water. But then we get to the real reasons people don't believe in God, and it comes down to 4. It comes down to fear, pain, pride, or guilt. That's it. The only reason people don't believe in God is one of those 4 reasons. So then I dig into those 4 reasons, and then in the third section of the book, I actually go over what we can do about it. Because, okay, fine, we know why they don't believe in God, but what are we doing as believers to better enhance the odds or spread the message and the gospel and the kingdom so people understand it and get it. Because in a lot of cases, when we look at why they don't believe, we're not giving them a good example either.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, now that's going to be. When do you think that book will come out?
Fall of this year.
Oh, awesome, awesome. And
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
She wants a copy.
She wants to know more about your
Yeah,
book.
she wants to know more about your book. And now, so some of the other stuff you do, of course, you've got the radio show.
Mhm.
Everybody go to just Google Josh Tolley radio show, and he's on the GCN network. And you guys, I guess, Josh, you have a YouTube channel, and I think we're going to do something a little fun on that YouTube channel for you. I think tell us how people can find your YouTube channel, and then we'll tell them about what we're going to do for fun.
Well, we just passed, and we're announcing this for the first time here too. I haven't even announced it on my show either. You guys just keep getting scoops. You are and Hugh Dow's of Hear the Watchmen. No, we just passed 100,000 subscribers, so
Wow.
that's pretty monumental, and we're honing in on 20 million views. So it's a pretty big channel. Just go into YouTube and type in Josh Tolley or the Josh Tolley channel, and it'll bring it up. And then, of course, hit subscribe so we can hit 200,000 subscribers.
Awesome.
I love what you say at the end of your YouTubes. How you say, if you like what you heard, subscribe now. If you don't like what you heard, subscribe anyway, or something like that, or subscribe now. It's really cute.
Yep.
Yeah. So we have the Hear the Watchmen conference coming up. And Mike and I are working really, really hard. This conference, Josh and Brittany, is going to be like 2 conferences. We have 18 sessions instead of 10.
Wow.
So you can imagine
Wow.
how we're packed it's going to be, and it couldn't come at a better time, don't you think, with
Right.
what's happening?
Yeah, we've had so many political changes. We've had a lot of people being affected in different ways, from everything that's going on socially, economically. And I think people are really prime ready. We're seeing a lot of believers kind of come out of the dust and kind of rise up and actually say, hey, I want to know more. I want to be a God-fearing person, and we're seeing just the shift in the spiritual realm. And I think it's really prime time for this conference to happen.
And Jeannie, we were talking about this today because you were on my show earlier today. Yeah. So many people think, okay, well, now that the Republicans won and Trump's in office, we can just sit back. But it's the opposite. If people haven't noticed, now is when the world goes crazy. Before, you just saw crazy building up. Now is when they go crazy. You're seeing protests and violence, and it's not going to stop. You see the globalists spending billions of dollars to try to take out the nationalists and the Christians and all those other sort of systems. So now is when people have to be prepared. Now is when the watchman stands on the wall and blows that shofar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speaking of which, I was blowing one just before we started the show.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Takes a little bit of practice, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. We could not hear any of that, but you guys looked great saying it.
For some reason, the sound went out.
The dog did it. Well, that's all I got. What's that saying? God is good.
So can the YouTube people, can the Google Hangouts people hear you or hear us?
They might be able to hear us because we have a little boom, boom, boom over there. So Google and Yahoo people or YouTube people, if you can hear us, they're just having a little technical difficulties.
Start over.